Hello and welcome to TheoTrade. My name is Doc Severson and this is the Theo Night Report for Tuesday, September 20th. If you are watching markets today live, you probably just about fell asleep because they really didn't move very much whatsoever. So this is the reason why. So this is not noted here, but tonight in Japan, the Bank of Japan comes out and that news is going to hit the tape, I believe, overnight. Probably sometime early in the morning tomorrow, Eastern time. So I think when they actually announce their new policy for the Bank of Japan, that's going to be approximately midnight Eastern time here in the United States. And then there's going to be a press conference a couple of hours after that where they explain the policy. So we may see futures moving around all over the place in the Globex session tonight. And then, of course, we have our own joyful event here. The FOMC announces policy at 2 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, 2 o'clock Eastern. And then they come out with the Janet Yellen press conference at 2:30, shortly after that. So what do these events really mean to us? Well, number one, we really can't look at the charts and come up with any kind of forecast until after this risk clears. But the second thing is that we can look at this and kind of come up with an idea of whether the probability of anything happening tomorrow whatsoever. Now, the wild card here is always not only the action, but also what they say. So what Janet Yellen says may be a lot more important than what she does as far as policy. Right now, it's only showing about an 18% chance of a rate hike tomorrow. That does go up to about 48%, so it's about 50-50 odds of a rate hike by the end of the year. But of course, we're going to have to see a few different strong jobs reports thrown in there for good measure between now and early December. Now, with respect to the charts, there's a couple of things that stand out to me. First of all, this feels very much like what we went through about 9 years ago at this time, where it seemed like every single Fed meeting, everybody was hanging on the edge of their chair to say, what could they say? What could they say? Well, of course, as you know, back in 2007, we were still in a rising rate environment, And so, of course, every Fed meeting that came out, there was always the expectation, could he pause? And this, he being, in this case, Ben Bernanke at that time. He'd already taken over the reins from Alan Greenspan. So every single Fed meeting that came out, is he going to hold? Is he going to hold? And he didn't until it was too late. But every single one of them gave the promise that, yeah, maybe next time we'll end up pausing instead of raising rates. So actually, this is when they started to pause. And as you can tell, we did get a reaction off of here, but it was far too late because the damage had been done. The weakness started to kick in. The Fed is always trailing. It is always too late in their policy actions. So the thing that concerns me with today's chart, concern meaning from, just a market structure point of view, is that all of the good news is already priced into this chart. What could Janet Yellen possibly say? What could the Bank of Japan possibly say tomorrow to increase buying at these levels at all-time highs? I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer to that question is. And it seems to me that the path of least resistance at this point is going to be to perhaps retest one of these support levels from below and see whether or not a bid still exists for those prices down there. The problem that we have also, if we look at the NASDAQ composite, is many of these charts have gotten a little too far, a little too fast. So this is usually a case where the NASDAQ composite takes a little bit of a nap. You can see along the way, every time we've seen a linearity of the chart get to this level, it's gone through somewhat of a correction, or at least a pause in the assault. We've seen barely anything to resemble that at this point. So this is typically, again, this level is typically when we start to see some type of reaction. And I wouldn't really call this any kind of a reaction that we had just a couple of weeks ago. So the other concern that I have right now is that there's just apparently nowhere to rotate your money into. The Russell's also got the same problem down here. The Russell, just within inches of an all-time high at this point, appears to be fading and in need of another consolidation or perhaps a dip back down to establish support levels once again. So again, to me, it's not really worth the time to look at all these charts and kind of come up with a forecast, because what we don't know is the X factor, what they're going to talk about in tomorrow's meeting. So we really have to just let this play out. And I believe that finally, once we get by these landmines tomorrow, the market will be free to trade, whether or not the good news is already priced in or whether there is no good news and we need to establish a different level of support. So after tomorrow night, we should have a pretty darn good view in terms of what's going on with the charts, what's happening, what risk is new to the market, what risk has been discounted, and what the direction it is that we can trade from this point forward. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure to catch us tomorrow evening. Take care, folks.